All right, we see a smiling face, but he's not live today. But that's okay. We can certainly work with the fact that our pal Martin Frank is on the phone with us here today. Martin, appreciate your jumping in. The Eagles did some bad math with John yesterday, so I'm going to ask you if you've done the math. How many days till Patriots Eagles in Foxborough?
Less than 3 weeks, right? 2.5 weeks.
Right, but somehow John asked. Were you there yesterday when John asked the question?
Yeah, you said 3.5 weeks, right?
I said I think 22 days.
He's off.
And last time I checked, 22 days is more than 3 weeks away. So come on, Eagles, you can't do the math. How the hell are you going to get to a Super Bowl if you can't figure out on a Tuesday, 2+ weeks from the Sunday when you open up the season is less than 22? How can we have faith that this team's going back to the Super Bowl, Martin, when they can't add and subtract?
Maybe he's already looking past the Patriots to the Vikings 4 days after that. Maybe
there it is.
22 days.
Well, yeah, because
whole game McMullen, is that the problem?
And it's interesting. Probably the secondary will be more important in that second game than the first game. I talked about. People. Zach Cunningham might play 50 snaps in New England, and he might play 6 against Minnesota, with the difference of those two teams. So, but I don't think so. I just think they're not good at math. I think the larger point, though, Martin, and what I was trying to make is shouldn't you be whittling down the safety competition instead of increasing it with all these Justin Evans first team reps so late in camp?
Yes. I mean, I think you get to that point definitely by next week after cuts are down. I mean, I think by now you should have a pretty good idea who your safeties are, and maybe that's Sirianni keeping it tight to the vest, competitive advantage and all that stuff. But, eventually beginning Tuesday after is cut down day. So I would think by next Wednesday, I mean, you're at that point, you're preparing for the season. Everything is geared towards the Patriots. So you better by next Wednesday's practice know who your starting safeties are going to be, as well as pretty much every other position. So maybe you don't want to show that right now while we're still allowed in there and going into that last preseason game. But I think it should be pretty obvious by next Wednesday.
All right, so I'm going hypothetical here. Let's say you get a text from, I don't know, Bob Lang, and he says, the coach wants to see you, Martin. So you get called into the office, so there's you and Sean Desai and Coach Sirianni, and he says, listen, I'm all ticked off at McMullen. I'd have him in here, but no, screw him. So I need your advice, Martin Frank. How should we deploy our safeties? What would you suggest to the Eagles?
I know what Martin's going to suggest.
Oh, I'm on the Sidney Brown train. Yeah. I think he's
the leader. He's the leader. He's to Sidney Brown what you are to Nakobe Dean, Jody.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a really good analogy. Yeah, I mean, I think I'd go with Sidney Brown and Reed Blankenship week 1. And just see how it works out. I mean, I think Sidney has shown me a lot. I mean, lately, the last week or so, he's been getting, first team reps. I know Justin Evans has been working in there, and I know obviously Terrell Edmonds has been working in there. But Sidney, I think, has the most upside of all those guys. Is he going to be ready week 1? I mean, that's still to be determined. But I think as the season goes along, he's going to get better and better. And I think the second half of the season, those two will be pretty solid together, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree, actually, Martin. I think they should go with Sidney Brown week 1. And my thought process is, get the Jim Schwartz coin startup cost out of the way early, because that's the weaker part of your schedule. Like, if you're throwing Justin Evans out there because Sidney Brown's not ready, and then all of a sudden Justin Evans turns into, I don't know, Justin Evans, and you want to go to Sidney Brown and say it's week 6 and Aaron Rodgers is on the schedule, he's going to take advantage of that. So you can afford to make mistakes against New England and Minnesota and Tampa Bay and Washington and probably still win games Where if
Mhm.
you get to the Jets or the Chiefs later, the Bills, making a mistake might cost you a game. That's the way I look at it. I'm like, get it over with. He's going to probably have some hiccups, but he'll get better and better the more he plays.
Yeah, and I think that's an excellent point, actually. And I also, but I also think like if you're going with Justin Evans, I mean, what does that say about how you feel about the safety position? I mean, Justin Evans, and nothing against him or Terrell Edmonds, but these guys, they were available at a pretty low cost for a reason. I mean, if you're counting on that, it's like Anthony Harris, when he started. I mean, it's like, all right, well, we got no one else. We got to throw Anthony Harris out there and, take our chances. I mean, if you really believe in Sidney Brown and you drafted him in the third round, you drafted him because you expect him to play and you expect him to be someone on your team for several years. So why not like get all that stuff out of the way early on in the season? And the point you made about the schedule is a great one. I mean, they have Baker Mayfield, Tampa Bay. I mean, yes, the Bucks have good receivers and stuff like that, but if you have a defensive line as good as the Eagles, you can get to Baker Mayfield and you can make
Yeah.
them throw early, and that'll make a safety look better too. Kirk Cousins could be a pretty big test, with the Vikings, but it's a Thursday night, a short week, so maybe you're okay getting
We saw
by.
that movie. Poor Minnesota had to open up the season here last year. That the Eagles
Exactly.
fans are going to be fired up. They're not going to be able to
Yeah.
handle that environment.
Yeah. I mean, Mac Jones doesn't really scare me. So I think they can I think they can weather the storm early on. And like you said, when they get to like teams like, Aaron Rodgers and Josh Allen and all those other guys, he'll be 6, 7, 8 games into his career and he'll have a better grasp on things. I think the upside definitely outweighs the other guys, and you might as well just do it.
All right, Martin, I want to take you back to a conversation we've been having since March when the Eagles lost the Super Bowl but had two coaching guys poached off their roster for head coaching positions, one of which you saw yesterday down there with the Colts, with Shane Steichen, the other, of course, is Jonathan Gann out in Arizona. And we talked about the fact that the Eagles have to replace these guys, and it's not easy. And they had the comfort of keeping this staff together till they didn't, and the league came in and said, oh, yeah, we'll give them head coaching jobs. So we know who the two hires were, one elevation, one from outside. I'm asking you about the new defensive coordinator, Sean Desai. And we all wondered how much different the Eagle defense was going to be. We know it's going to be exactly the same as the new defensive coordinator. We also know that the head coach likes his defensive tenants, and that we think that that's a reason why Sean Desai got the job, because of a Fangio disciple, and that their changes might not be all that different. Linebacker and safety. Last year, the guys who started at those positions played basically every snap. If they were healthy, they were on the field. At safety, at linebacker, no situational substitutions, no rotating guys. The two guys at those two positions stayed on the field all year. Right now, we're, let me do the math, not 22, only 19 days away from the first game of the season. And we don't know who the two starting linebackers are going to be. We don't know who the two safeties are going to be. We're 99% sure on Blankenship and on the Kobe Dean, but the other guy is completely up in the air. Will they decide on one and throw him in there and hope that it's the same as last year? Or are they going to have a rotation at those two positions this season?
I think ideally they want to settle on starters at each position. And then if it doesn't work, then maybe change it up. I mean, Nakobe's not going anywhere. He's definitely going to be a starter. And obviously Reed Blankenship is going to be a starter. So I think those guys are set. And if, they go with Zach Cunningham week 1 as a starting linebacker and he's not getting the job done, well, then you go with, maybe like Christian Ellis or Nicholas Morrow, or even if Ben Samurin is on the roster, give him a shot. I mean, I think if Zach Cunningham can't do it, then they're in pretty big trouble anyway. But I think the idea would be to settle on guys and stick with them and until they can't, and if they can't, then they got to find somebody to put in there. It's the same way at safety. I mean, obviously Blankenship is going to start, and if they go with Sidney Brown, at first I'd like to think if they go with Sidney Brown, unless he's totally messes up, I mean, I think they're going to live with his mistakes when he makes them, especially early on in the season. So I don't think that's going to change. I think, if Sidney's the starter week 1, I think they're sticking with him unless he totally, totally messes up. But I don't see that happening. Nothing that I've seen would indicate that would happen. So I think they would pretty much stick with obviously we're
Okay.
talking about Cunningham.
You're
and
hoping that somebody
Sidney Brown.
wins the job. We'll see if that goes.
Yeah.
Just because there are other positions on the football field where they bounce guys in and out all the time. Defensive line, there is a rotation. I'm just wondering if they'll go rotation at either linebacker or safety. You say they hope they don't. All right, gotcha.
All right, snapshot, Martin Frank, Wednesday. I'm looking at my phone, August 23rd. So, Jody, what are we, 18 days away? 18 days away.
Yes.
From Foxborough. Who are you more confident in right now, in Martin Frank's estimation? Reed Blankenship or Nakobe Dean as a starter on this Eagles defense?
That's a really good question. I'm going to lean more towards Nakobe Dean. I just think, he's the one wearing the green dot. He's the one kind of setting the defense and everything. And I think he knows exactly what's going on with the defense. I think he has a better overall grasp of the defense. Not saying that Blankenship doesn't, because obviously he's proven to be in the right spot more often than not. But I have a little bit more confidence in Nakobe Dean. I just think, watching all last year, learning from TJ Edwards and Kaiser White. I mean, he's a student of the game. He was like a 4.0 student at Georgia and everything like that. He's a smart guy, and I think he knows the defense, and I think he knows where to be and everything like that. So I feel a little bit more comfortable with him as opposed to Blankenship.
See, it's funny, and you said earlier, John, the biggest Nakobe Dean fan, Jody McDonald. I'd actually say Blankenship because he got a chance.
I'm Team Reed, man. I'm Team Reed. Reed is rock solid, man. And it stuns me. I didn't see it coming. That guy's just good.
And I'm giving you my opinion, not because of Reed Blankenship, not even because of the Eagles coaching staff, because of happenstance. CJ got hurt, so he got a chance to play last year. He's got actual experience. The middle linebacker's got 34 snaps. That's why I would give Blankenship a little bit of a leg up going into the season over Dean. Not that he's better, been better, gonna be better. No, he's just more prepared. He's more ready because he's actually gotten out onto the field. Just because, again, CJ got hurt last year. All right, Martin, I got to ask you this, and this could decide the entire Philadelphia Eagles season this year. Did John's other employee, Sports Illustrated, screw the Philadelphia Eagles by putting Jalen Hurts on their cover this week?
I would say, I don't know. I mean, Jalen Hurts is, he's Jalen Hurts. Everybody wants him on the cover. And the guy who wrote the story, Greg Bishop, did a great job. I mean,
he did a tremendous job.
Yeah, I read
but
it.
He didn't get that information from Jalen. Did you? Were you there when I asked Jalen that question, Martin?
About
I
Ted
was
Rath.
stunned. Yeah, it was clear that from that answer that Greg got that stuff from Nicole Lynn, not Jalen, because Jalen was stunned that we knew what went on with his offseason program. Yeah, that was an interesting back and forth because he had no idea. He's like, I purposefully kept that from you guys, which I already told on this show 100 times. Jody knows.
Oh, yeah.
I said he was working with, because I found that out from somebody with the Eagles. He was working with Tom House and Adam. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Dedu.
All right.
So I reported that at the time. So I didn't know the details that Ted Rath put them together.
Mm-hmm.
But he did not want that out there. That was interesting to me. It was very
No,
interesting.
but I kind of heard, yeah, I kind of heard that link before too. I mean, I don't think it was totally surprising because I mean, he himself said he went to California to
Yeah,
train and everything.
yeah.
Well, I mean, who else are you training with in
Well,
California?
there's a
You
lot of
know,
guys. Jordan, Carson Palmer's, uh,
Jordan Palmer,
Jordan
Carson's
Palmer's out
brother.
there.
yeah,
There's another one. There's a lot of quarterback gurus in California, Southern California. But no doubt, yeah, Tom and Adam are
yeah.
the most high profile.
Those are the
So,
guys I always think of.
yeah, so it made the
First.
most sense. Um, but yeah, he always kept it vague, is what he did. He said
Yeah,
he admitted he went to Southern California, but he always kept it vague. Um, and it sounded like he didn't know Greg reported that because Jalen doesn't read stuff, so he doesn't know.
yeah. I'm kind
And
of disappointed because I thought he read all of my
yeah,
stuff,
I
but
know, except Martin
evidently
Frank
not.
stuff.
That's
Um, but yeah, I just thought it was interesting that back and forth. He is so guarded.
Yeah.
It's is that big of a deal that he's working with Tom? Everybody works with Tom and Adam. Who cares?
And obviously, the results speak for themselves. I mean,
Yeah,
he had a great year last year, and from what we saw yesterday, and pretty much all throughout training camp, I mean, he's looked just as good, if not better. I mean, you know,
yeah, he's had a great camp. He's had a great camp. Yeah,
And I would suggest that the SI jinx has taken a backseat to the Madden jinx. So for those who
yeah,
are ready to just sort of, how can they do that to us? And the Sports Illustrated jinx has, for me, gone by the boards. But I love the fact that people get nervous about this stuff. All right, Martin Frank, with exactly 12 days ago, 19 days ago before the season starts. What worries you most about the Philadelphia Eagles? They're in good shape. They're the favorites to win the NFC. They're better than being the Colts at this stage. That's for damn sure. What does legitimately worry you about this season as we get that much closer to the beginning of it?
well, actually, there are a couple things, and I don't mean to throw a wet blanket over
I
everybody.
love
Oh, I'm
wet
asking you to
blankets.
do that. I set
Throw
you
it.
up for it, Martin. You
I
gotta
live.
go there.
I live for wet blankets, Martin. Give me a wet
All
blanket.
right. Well, I'll give you a couple. The first thing is injuries. I mean, they're as talented, if not more so than they have been in the past, but they're not as deep as they've been in the past. I mean,
Yeah.
if you get an injury to an offensive lineman, for example, they're in big trouble. I mean, you look at the guys behind the 5 stars, and the 5 stars might be the best in the entire NFL. I mean, I don't think there's really much dispute about that, but like, who are your first backups? Let's say Kelsey goes down, you got to move Cam Jurgens over to center. You're putting a rookie Tyler Steen or Jack Driscoll in there. Lane Johnson or Mailata go down. Who's the backup tackle? And it's like that at a lot of positions. I mean, as great as Josh Jobe has looked, I mean, if Slay or Bradbury go down, or if they start showing their age, that's a big drop off. Jobe has very little, if no experience in the NFL, so that's an issue. Linebacker's always been an issue, even when they're healthy. I still think, it's better than it was, but it's still not great. The defensive line, probably out of any position, can withstand injuries
Yeah,
more
they're
than
loaded on the
yeah, that
defensive
that
line.
unit is just loaded. But
I mean, Martin, they don't even have. They're not practicing. Hassan's out, obviously,
yeah,
with the surgery.
right. Yeah, and it's easy to forget that just watching Nolan Smith and Josh
Yeah,
Sweat and all those guys.
yeah,
And then, I haven't even gotten to the quarterback yet. I mean, we've all seen Marcus Mariota in the 2
yeah.
preseason
That's
games. I
not good.
mean,
That's not good.
yeah. I mean, there are a lot of things that can go wrong, especially with injuries. And that's kind of like the biggest wet blanket. I don't think they have the depth that they had last year when guys went down, or even 2017. I mean, they lost a ton of guys and won the Super Bowl and everything. I think it's a lot, and for obvious reasons. I mean, you have so many limitations with the salary cap. You have to pay certain guys, including the quarterback and stuff, and you just can't add high price guys to fill in your depth. You have to take some chances with young players, unproven players, veterans on low cost deals who are on low cost deals for a reason. So That's the biggest right there is injuries to certain spots, everything. I don't know if they can withstand that, but yeah, that's my biggest worry.
All right. I like a good wet blanket. So I'm going to throw one back at you, a wet blanket. I'm not nearly as excited about this running back situation as most people seem to be.
Hmm.
To me, and when everybody's talking about the fight yesterday, what's always interesting, Kenny Gainwell's involved, getting bullied by Zaire Franklin. But I say, look who's always the name on the field in high leverage. It's always Kenny Gainwell, always Kenny Gainwell. But from this perspective, Martin, the Eagles are so situationally driven. They don't practice much normal sort of NFL, you get the kickoff at the 25 and you go to the drive. So being in those high leverage situations doesn't necessarily equate to being the guy who's going to run it the most. Is that where Rashad Penny fits? Can you get a feel for what the heck they're doing at the running back position? Because it's not as bad as safety opposite Reed Blankenship, which
Right.
I don't know what they're doing. But running back, there's a lot of uncertainty. And I don't like uncertainty on August 23rd if I'm a football team.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be that way at running back. I think whoever gets the bulk of the carries, I'm really talking about three guys because, whether the fourth guy is Trey Sermon or Boston Scott, I don't think they're going to be a big part of this rotation. But it's basically, Penny, Swift, and Gainwell. And I think a lot of it's just going to be matchup driven. I think a lot of it's going to be who has the hot hand. And, I just think running back is a different position for the Eagles because that's the only position. Like Nick Sirianni came out and said, okay, these two are going to play in the first preseason game. These two are going to play in the second preseason game. I think he's just
or
trying
Rashad Penny had to play in both.
Yeah, I think Rashad's going to get the night off tomorrow, to be honest with you. So I think he's okay in that. But I think it's just one of those, like, week by week, it's going to change. I mean, the last couple of years, we knew it was going to be Miles Sanders, and if it worked, great. If not, you just throw the ball to AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and all that. But I think this year it's just going to be more of a field type of situation, depending on who the opponent is, depending on who has the hot hand. And it could be one week, it could be a DeAndre Swift week, and then the next week it could be Rashad Penny, and maybe Kenny Gainwell fits in there somewhere too. It's just going to be all up in the air, and it'll probably go week to week. That's kind of how I see it.
Do we have faith that the new offensive coordinator, who's never done it before, he's been in the league for a while, he's an offensive coordinator in Cleveland, do we have faith that he's the guy to make just the right call with just the right back for just the right matchup in the games early in the season?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's got the endorsement of the quarterback, which counts for a lot. And they do have a pretty good passing attack. So I think in a lot of those cases, I'm not saying the running back is irrelevant, but I'm saying it's not one of the top priorities, especially when you have Hurts himself, who can take off and run and will, and makes, and that makes the other guys even better. So I think Brian Johnson has a pretty good feel about it's all around Jalen Hurts' strengths. So Brian Johnson's going to design a game plan based on that. And if it means that Jalen Hurts has to run the ball more, then he will. If it means he does, the zone read and the read option, and he's handing off or he's throwing quick slants, I mean, that's all going to be geared toward Jalen Hurts more so than who the running back is.
At M Frank NFL, make sure you follow Martin Frank on X or
X.
Twitter if you prefer. DelawareOnline.com. You can read him there. Does a tremendous job covering this team. It seems like the only time we talk about Jalen Hurts, Martin, is when he's got a new endorsement deal, whether it's Jordan, whether it's Hulu now. Or he's on the cover of Sports Illustrated, or he's shutting down questions at press conferences. nobody talks about the football part of it because he's just been good,
Yeah.
pretty much throughout camp. It's pretty amazing, the trajectory of this player, to the point where I think other people say, well, Jalen Hurts did it. Why can't Justin Fields? You saw a lot of that. Why
Right.
can't Justin Fields do it? This is not normal. How it's pretty amazing we're taking him for granted now, isn't it? Like, we're not worried at all about Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because a year ago at this time, nobody knew for sure that he would be this good. I mean, yes, we all knew he was going to be the starting quarterback and probably deserved to be, but I think I remember like in 2021, he completed maybe 61% of his passes, and everyone's like, all right, well, if he can do better than that, like maybe get to 63 or 64, that would be great. And he completed 66.5% of his passes, and he ran for 740 yards, and he was the runner up, for the Super Bowl. And he probably would have had well over 4,000 yards, but the Eagles had such big leads in so many games that they just kind of handed the ball off in the second half. And plus he missed the 2 games with the injury. So, yeah, I mean, it's been pretty meteoric. And yeah, like I saw, wasn't there some kind of rating where Justin Fields was considered to be the best? Did I?
No,
right?
I think James Jones went on ESPN and said he was going to be better or something than
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts,
I
which
mean,
is,
that's
that was
ridiculous.
Jody brings up disrespect a lot during what I call disrespect season.
Yeah.
That to me was the most disrespectful thing. That might have been Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback, I think, but Jalen was number 2 last
Mhm.
year. I think that's fair. He was runner up in MVP.
Yeah.
And, Justin Fields is a young quarterback who's struggling mightily, but can run the football well.
Yeah.
Throwing it, we got to see him out
Why
in
did you
Chicago.
have to go there and disrespect Justin Fields?
Because
Is
he's not on
struggling
Jalen Hurts'
mightily?
level. He was
He's
the
not.
third.
He's not nearly as good a passer.
I'm
as
not
at
comparing
least-
him to Jalen Hurts. I'm comparing him to the rest of the world. Justin Fields is struggling mightily. You don't think he's going to be a good quarterback this year?
He was.
He's not going to be Jalen Hurts. You're right. James Jones, what the hell is he talking about? But
Well,
if you
I'm talking
believe
about
that
James
that's
Jones
disrespect of Jalen Hurts, why would you turn around and disrespect Justin Fields and say struggling mightily?
because he was the 35th graded passer by Pro Football Focus. There's 32 starters. He was 35th. He's struggling mightily as a passer in this league. Now, part of that is he's on a crappy team, a crappy organization with a crappy supporting cast.
Well, we'll
But
find
none
out
of that
this
has
year.
changed.
We'll find out this year. They added DJ Moore. And
Yeah, they got
everything,
a little bit better.
So
from
they got.
supporting,
I mean,
but
I
they
guess
still
you
have
can
a
look
bad
at,
offensive line. They still don't have they don't have Jonathan. They should maybe consider getting Jonathan Taylor to help their young quarterback. He's still not enough has changed. He's still got a defensive head coach. He doesn't have a good ecosystem for that development, like Anthony Richardson has with Shane Steichen. Yeah.
And the 5 things that you just rattled off, none of them had anything to do with Justin Fields. It was everything around him. So then why would you say Justin Fields is struggling mightily? The Chicago Bears are struggling mightily. Okay, that I could buy. I don't know that Justin Fields is struggling mightily.
Yeah, I also think like a lot of teams now are trying to draft the next Jalen Hurts. And, I mean, the rep for Hurts coming out of college was great runner, dynamic runner, but might not be the best passer. And he became obviously a good passer. So they're like, okay, well, we could take an Anthony Richardson who might have completed 53% of his passes at Florida and turn him into a good passer. But in the meantime, wow, he can really run the ball and he's going to be dangerous. And I think teams look at Justin Fields the same way. Like, yeah, he might not be the most accurate passer, but we can make him into an accurate passer like the Eagles did with Hurts. And I think that's kind of what you're seeing with a lot of these guys coming out of college right now is, they're all trying to kind of be like Jalen Hurts. And it's a question of whether, I mean, I'm not saying that you can definitely make a guy into Jalen Hurts, but, I think that also shows just how good Jalen Hurts has become as far as passing the ball and a dual threat, or as Jalen likes to call himself, a triple threat. Those other guys Fields and Richardson are still kind of works in progress, obviously. And, I think it's going to be pretty ugly for the Colts, actually, to be honest with you, because there's not much
Yeah.
there either. I mean, Shane's got his work cut out for him. And, this is a big year for Justin Fields. He's got a better receiver to work with now, and the Bears kind of added pieces here and there and stuff. And if he can't make the big step this year,
I have tremendous respect for Shane as a play caller and as an offense. Like, I think Anthony's in a better situation. Situation matters in the NFL, and with quarterbacks especially. I always go back to '99 and Donovan McNabb. Like, if Andy Reid gets Tim Couch or Achilles Smith and somebody else from that draft, and Donovan McNabb has to go to their crappy situations, you might have a whole different thought process on those quarterbacks. Situation matters. And Jody's right. That's why I add the context. Justin Fields is in a bad situation, so that contributes to him struggling mightily, but he struggled mightily as a passer. He's 35th in the league as a passer in a 32-team league. That ain't good.
No.
But I think
he needs to be better.
I think he will be that improved this year because they have upgraded the pieces around him. And I just think he's going to take a natural progression. Did Jalen Hurts jump the number 2 quarterback in the league purely because they got A.J. Brown? Did he take Hurts from what? 16, 17, 18, 19, if we're being optimistic as to where he finished after his first year as a starter, and go to number 2? It wasn't just AJ. That was massive improvement by Hurts. I think Fields is capable of doing that this year. Not to number 2, but making a major move on his own just because the experience is going to make him a better quarterback. I'm a Fields fan, and I think you will see that this year. Martin, we kept you a long time. Thank you much for jumping in today. We're going to talk to you during the season all the time. Be careful with McMullen spilling coffee. Now you got to sit next to him every week. It's just going to get that much dicier for you on a week in, week out basis.
It happened once. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
You'll be fine, Martin.
Forever.
I'm going to put up a little shield around my laptop.
There you go.
All right.
Martin,
well, thanks
buddy.
As always. Thanks for having me. As always.
Thanks, Martin. Appreciate it.
See you.
We'll talk to you in a couple weeks. Martin Frank here with us on Birds 365. All right, we got to come back, put a bow on the show. Get right back with us.